Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. Tonight's films are The Spawn of Ninja Turtles. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have two good movies, the other two bad ones. Let the chaos begin. I am not the Vindicator, the whatever the shit that starts with a V. I am Adam, the violated by the character of Violator Thomas.
And I am your totally radical other host, Thomas Mariani.
Whoa!
And we've got a super bodacious guest with us today on the double-edged double bill. It is Mr. Torrey Depina returning once again. Torrey, how's it going?
I'm just feeling totally tubular, man. Is that how it works?
Yeah, you sound like a high on.
Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Radical, dude. Do I sound tubular yet? Oh, I can't even say it right. God damn.
It's because you're high.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
You all can't see, but we're all dressed up in overalls and have neon backwards baseball caps, and we look like extras in a Will Smith video from like 1990. Mm-hmm. It's pretty great.
Except my overalls are cutoffs.
We're some natural cool cats.
Today on the Double-Edged Double Bill, in honor of the month of April, has a lot of different comic book movies coming out. We've got the week that this is releasing, Shazam's coming out, but we've already done DC comic movies. And later this month we got Avengers Endgame coming out, but we've already done Marvel movies. So we decided, since also Hellboy is going to be a thing that comes out.
And we've already done shitty movies.
That's part of the gimmick, Adam. But we decided, since like Hellboy's coming out and there's some other ones that aren't those two main companies coming out, we decided to do specifically non-DC or Marvel adaptations, and we've got two of them tonight. We picked randomly at the end of our last episode the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and then the 1997 adaptation of Spawn, which it's Mirage, right? Mirage is the original company for Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, no, I think it was originally Mirage, but I think it went to Dark Horse.
Oh yeah, the Ninja Turtles have gone through a bunch of different, like IDW, I think, does it now. It's been a bunch of different companies. But regardless, Torrey, we invited you back on the show. This is the first time since the Halloween episode we did back in October. And why this particular topic? What tickled your fancy about it?
It just seemed like something refreshing, because it seems like this whole present-day landscape, it's obviously just ruled by two powerful companies. We got Marvel, we got DC, and it kind of felt good to go to a simpler time where, we weren't boggled down by universes. We didn't know what to expect. And, you had some good, you had some bad with the two films we're talking about tonight, obviously.
For sure, yeah, because we're covering two movies one's from the very early 90s, and one is from 1997. So you kind of get the exact opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of, like, the age that basically Batman created in terms of comic book adaptations.
It's one's flawed, and the other is... we'll
get into that. Put a pin in that. We'll get into
exactly
all of that. But I know, Adam, you're more of a comic book person necessarily. I am. I mean, what would you say is like your favorite sort of example of like these kind of underrated publishers and the films that they've produced?
Oh, are we talking like what some of my favorites are that the people might not have latched onto, or what do I think of them trying to make films?
What the fuck ever. Keep going.
Well, I mean, there are some definite gems out there, and ones that a lot of people don't even realize are based on comic books. Like the first one that popped in is like Road to Perdition.
Fuck yes.
I mean,
Definitely.
That's such an amazing movie. And then as recent as like, say, Dread with Carl Urban. If the source material's good, then it can make for a great movie. The only problem is, because they're not Marvel or DC, that a lot of times the budget on them is just so bad, and they don't attract big names, and, just weak actors, bad sets, bad costuming. So a lot of them fall by the wayside, but there are definitely some shining examples. We definitely talk about one tonight. And then we talk about another movie. Another movie's in here, too.
Yep. For those of you who's your first time with Double Edge Double Bill, we do a good and a bad pick. That's the whole gimmick. We'll choose at the end of this very episode our topics for next week, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead. Let's just get into our features. So we'll start off with our good feature, which is the original 1990 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Our family grows. There is a new enemy, freaks of nature. Together, we will punish these creatures.
What the heck was that?
Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat.
Excellent! Cowabunga! Yeah! I love being a turtle!
So yes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as I mentioned, came out in 1990, March 30th, 1990, and is based off the characters that were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. As I mentioned, it was a Mirage Studios originally, was what the comic company that produced it, and from what I can know of, admittedly I'm not as versed on the comics of these characters, they were basically sort of like a parody of Frank Miller's era Daredevil, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, like 100%. Really, that's why, I mean, like, you got the Foot Clan instead of the Hand.
Right.
You know, and Daredevil. Yeah, it was definitely, they tried to draw comparisons. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't call it a straight ripoff, but they definitely, well, it might be a straight ripoff as far as even their origin story, to where even to the point where, you know, Kevin Eastman and Laird even said that the little boy that the man pushes out of the way and then the canister strikes him in the eyes or whatever is supposed to be Matt Murdock. Like, they're like, oh, no, our universes are connected. And, of course, Marvel's like, the fuck they are. So, I mean, but, yeah, they definitely aped on Daredevil. Have you never read any of the original comics?
No, I haven't. My relationship with the Ninja Turtles is interesting because, of course, obviously after those comic books, it became the popular animated series from the late 80s to early 90s, and then these movies that would come out. Most of my relationship really was with the original movie, this one, and its sequels, and then also the toys. As a kid, I remember I had got like a lot of hand-me-down second-generation Ninja Turtles toys. My favorite being there was one where it was, I think, Michelangelo with a pizza box in front, and there was a little pizza you could put in, and you would shoot it out if you pushed a button on the shell. And I remember loving the fuck out of that, and it's weird where I didn't know this. This production was apparently independent, mostly shot in North Carolina, and was declined by most of the major studios like Disney, Warner, all them, because they were afraid it would kind of be like, speaking of a previous episode we did, a previous topic, kind of like Masters of the Universe, where it was a popular toy line and animated series, but it could have also bombed, so New Line ended up just doing it. And I guess that makes sense from that specific time perspective. It could have easily just been a fad. Yet, of those sort of eras, cartoons and comics, Ninja Turtles has had such surprisingly lasting long life, like a tortoise. It keeps on kicking. It's still going.
Yeah. I mean, it's still fucking going. The reboot just came out, the cartoon. But yeah, to get back to the source material, they are incredibly dark, incredibly violent. There's nudity, profanity, blood, gore. They're actually really, really good, too. And then it just turned into, you know, Uncle Phil as Shredder. It just got ridiculous.
Tonight I dine on turtle soup.
Right, that was so good. These guys, I mean, talk about beating a horse to death. I cannot believe that they're already talking about rebooting the film franchise again.
Well, before we go too far into that, Torrey, what's your relationship with Ninja Turtles?
To go back to my, like, when I was like a little kid, like turn back time a little bit, it actually starts with ice cream. Believe it.
Those were the best, though.
Oh my god! Like, anytime it would be like, I'd be at my dad's like basketball tournaments in like the town where I'm from, New Bedford, Massachusetts. Ninja Turtle ice creams with the gummy fucking gumball eyes and shit.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. My like one time, literally, like my brother had, you know, he's like 5 years old. He actually like takes a wad of cash out, runs out to the ice cream person, and just slams it on the table, takes the ice cream, and just runs back inside, leaving like a trail of dollar bills, by the way, just for these things. But beyond that, obviously, I fucking loved the films when I was a kid. I remember going to my uncle's house all the time. Me and my little brother, we would watch the films. We watched all three. Like the second one with Vanilla Ice, and then the third one where they go back in time time to, feudal era Japan or whichever. And of course, there was like the cartoon that me and watched when we were kids from the 80s, just through like Saturday morning reruns on like, Nickelodeon or any other channel it was syndicated on. And of course, it led to them trying to do the live action series that was on Fox Kids.
God, I forgot about that.
So the thing what they did with that is, and it was like, I liked it as a kid. Like I had no qualms. Like they even had one where they even had a female turtle named Venus, which I guess fans
Venus de Milo.
Venus de Milo. Yeah, that's a really corny ass name. But yeah, they would even have them do crossovers. Like there was a Power Rangers, I think it was either Turbo or In Space, one of those two. There was like a lot of exposure to like the Ninja Turtles like franchise when I was a kid. It kind of seemingly died out in the late 90s, early 2000s, but then it kind of came back again with what I think is probably the best version of the show, like the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show.
Right, yeah.
And I think it lasted for about 5 or 6 years. And, 4Kids was an awful production company when it came to like dubbing certain animes and certain TV shows and how they Americanized the fuck out of them. But for some reason, they were able to handle this with a lot of care and actually go darker than what I would expect even the original 90s one to go to. Like, it obviously couldn't go as balls to the wall as the 90s comic, but it didn't feel like it was talking down to its audience. It felt like it was a balance. It was cool enough for kids, but also it wasn't too kiddie for original fans to appreciate. Like they were taking the Batman Beyond approach right there. And like Baxter Stockman loses a limb every time he fails. Oh, damn. They're actually going that far. And then, of course, there's been, like, the massive reboots that have gone on since then, but I don't want to go deeper into that.
Right. That was a series I was more familiar with, because I'd watched a few reruns of, like, the older 80s one, and I thought, like, this is fine, this is all right. It's a bit slow. It's a lot slower than you remember. Like, most of those cartoons, they fill up so much time.
A lot of blinking.
A lot of blinking.
A lot of blinking.
Yep. But yeah, so to get back to the 90 movie, this is directed by Steve Barron, who actually got his start directing a lot of the influential music videos that starred MTV. I found out he directed the Billie Jean music video, Money for Nothing, Take On Me, like big.
Oh my god, I felt that watching this movie. That makes fucking sense, like completely, because I definitely got that vibe, like that, because it was 90s, so it was clear that 80s vibe was still alive and well, because it had like a good year or two left of shelf life.
Right, yeah, because it definitely has sort of, like, it's that last moment before New York lost its grit. Like, Rudy Giuliani comes in, like, 6 or 7 years later and completely turns it into Disney-owned Times Square and shit like that. So, I mean, mainly most of this is, as I mentioned, was shot in North Carolina on sets. They had a couple days where they shot in New York City. But the big innovation that was done with this one was obviously the use of the turtle suits, which was done by the Jim Henson Company. It's one of the last credits Jim Henson has on a movie in general, because he passed away like a couple months after this movie came out. And those are still really impressive. I mean, even with like the lip sync obviously is hit or miss, but it's hit or miss in the same way that like the Dinosaurs TV show was, where it's still kind of endearing and still very impressive for the time.
I think they hold up great, actually. Yeah, of course lip syncing, but lip syncing is always off when it goes puppet to live actor, usually. Just the range of movement that the actors got out of them, too. It's crazy. No, they feel like the Ninja Turtles and look like the Ninja Turtles. When they got to, like, the sequels and they started getting, like, dots all over them and markings and stuff, then they started looking silly. But I still think these look great.
We gotta make them look more like turtles than ninjas.
Well, that's stupid.
I mean, honestly, the effects that pulled up the best for me that I was surprised by was the flashback stuff where you see the little turtles and little Splinter. I think because they cascaded enough, like, darkness. I
fucking love that. Yeah. That was, like, way better than it did. I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember appreciating this. It still holds up. It doesn't feel, like, aged or anything. I mean, yeah, some of the voices sound silly and shit, but man, like, this puppetry is amazing, which obviously the quality goes down later in the later movies, but here it's, out of everything in this film, it's still, like, this holds up the most, the practical effects.
By the third movie, it basically becomes like a Chuck E. Cheese show.
Oh my god, isn't that
with how bad the
But I'll
mouths are.
tell you, man, I'd rather have the Chuck E. Cheese show or even the Saban live-action show that we were talking about over than the giant fucking were-turtles that we got in the new ones.
I will disagree respectfully with that.
I don't hate those movies, but we'll get into that maybe a bit.
Those movies.
I won't go that far.
Whoa.
I will not go that far. That's also what works about this is whenever they kind of put them in sort of a darkened place, like especially when they're like out on the streets of New York at night, I think they look really great. Especially the biggest surprise for me was when they have the suits obviously don't have like the mouths, because basically they would have 3 people operating this. There's a guy in the suit. There's a guy who's actually doing, like, the faces, like, off-screen, doing audio animatronic kind of stuff. And there's someone doing the voice. I think what works especially well is when it's the ones without mouths, and they're actually doing pretty good fight choreography for those suits. I was really impressed by that, especially, like, there's a whole scene where Raphael has to go down to the subway and beat up some Foot Clan guys. That worked still really well. I was quite surprised by how, like, actually athletic a guy can be in that suit.
Dude, I know they're spin kicking and cartwheeling, and I can't even do that in my normal fat man flesh suit, let alone a latex turtle suit. And the choreography in this, as far as the fight scenes, I mean, obviously they had to tone it down a little bit because they are working with a man in a turtle suit, but it's still pretty like fast paced and hard hitting. Like you never feel, at least I don't, like they're got on baby gloves, like they're sort of like, slowing or whatever just to accommodate for the guy in the suit. It all felt like a fight. Like I still think this is one of the best human in puppet suit acted films ever.
I was wondering as far as like how hard it must have been to operate in the suits, because for some reason when the scene that comes up where Raphael is carrying April away from the Foot Clan after the awkwardly filmed subway, I mean, obviously, this is 1990, I'm not holding it against it, but when he's running holding April, like you can hear him like, ha, ha, and I'm like, I can't tell if that's acting or not, honestly, because that must have been heavy as fuck to have to deal with.
Right. I think, to be fair, that's, I think, a lighter version, because since they dubbed that over later, I'm sure on set the guy's like, fucking kill me! This is so terrible!
I lost 30 pounds, I lost 30 more pounds!
Yeah, like Ernie Reyes Jr., who would actually have a weird sidekick role in the second movie, was Raphael a lot in the suit doing a lot of the fight choreography stuff. And he would talk about how, like, you would basically lose, like, a pound in sweat, like, every day, which makes sense. Like, that seems like a workout regimen of interest, like, walk around in a turtle suit. Why not? I will say, I think what also works is that they take a bit of time to reveal them. Like, they don't immediately blow their wad with, like, the turtle showing up on screen. The opening sequence where they're kind of cascaded in shadow, you don't see them fight, it's a lot more obscured, and then they save it for right after the title comes up. They just pop out, and immediately just like, oh crap, they're here. they're the fucking turtles that just walk in. I'll say, my biggest issue with them is more on, like, a character level, which is weird to say, because these turtles were never, the most complex characters, but each one of them had a distinctive personality, and I think they get most of them right. Because Leonardo, obviously, is the begrudging leader, has to, like, keep all the guys into shape. Raphael is the loner, angsty one. Mikey is the lovable goofball, and I think those 3, they get really right. And then, unfortunately, I think Donatello, who does machines per the Chuck Lorre theme song, he is supposed to be, like, the kind of nerdier one of the group, and I think in this movie he just kind of becomes another Mikey.
Like, that's the thing about the present day, like the recent ones that that Bay's production company was responsible for. They let that known from, like, the intro, like from the first film and the second film. This one, it just felt like him and Mikey were just like, we're both goofballs. That's what we're here for. Oh, Raphael and Leonardo are fighting again. Whoa. Like that sort of deal. You didn't really get that tech aspect at all, actually. It was like, hey, I'm Michelangelo, but I'm wearing a purple headband instead.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, but I'd argue, though, that also Corey Feldman's voice is probably the most iconic. I think his voice is perfect. I just think, they dumbed down the character quite a bit.
I mean, he's perfect for Michelangelo, though. Like, that's the thing, is he totally fits more like the party dude aesthetic, as opposed to, I think it's more just, quite frankly, he's the most famous one. Which we should give credit to Brian Toshi, who is the voice of Leonardo, John Pius, who's actually in the suit and does the voice for Raphael, and then Robbie Rist is the guy who does Michelangelo. on
And
that.
Robbie Rist is actually a respected voice actor in his own right, especially when it comes to like a lot of anime dubs. He used to be a former child actor too. He played Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch. I don't know.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The death of that show, basically.
He was the Poochie? Is that what you guys are saying?
Yeah, pretty kinda. He was kind of douche. Josh Pius as Raphael annoyed me when I was a kid, and I still find it annoying. The really, really put on New York accent really kind of just.
Where'd they come up with this stuff?
Yeah, hey, come on! Like, okay, why is he like stereotypical Italian? I don't understand what's going on here. You know, Raphael was never like my favorite of the Turtles, and I think it just sort of like made me hate him more.
I eat crumpets to understand cricket.
As a kid, I remember him being my favorite just because he's like, oh man, he's the rebellious one. He's the
Right.
like,
He's the dark and brooding one.
exactly, just like, oh
Like
man,
me at 6 years old.
exactly. Just like, I understand his pain. And then as I've grown up, obviously it's way more Leonardo because like, fuck yeah, keep these guys together for the love of God. Dude.
Leonardo's a G, dude.
And two, also, we should give credit to, I think they do a masterful job with Splinter as well, considering that most of the time he's just like half a puppet. I think they do such a great job with like making him feel just as real as those guys do. Which, I mean, in credit to, it's Kevin Clash, who was previously the voice of Elmo in Puppeteer, the original one. Then things happened.
Right?
We'll leave it at
Boy,
that.
did they ever.
I really think that the Splinter stuff especially impressed me a lot more upon this rewatch, considering he has to interact with those turtles. And at the same time, they do a pretty good job of, while the turtles are silly, they at least make that sort of surrogate father-son relationship work between all of them.
We were talking about Leonardo earlier being another Michelangelo. I think the thing that justifies that is the fact that him and Michelangelo have like great chemistry together in a comedic fashion, the way that Leonardo and Raphael have the great chemistry from a dramatic fashion. You know, when Raphael wakes up from his injuries, he's like, I'm so sorry, brother. Like, you know, that type of thing. You feel that, you know, it feels corny, obviously, because it's Saturday morning cartoonish, but you're watching the Ninja Turtles. You're supposed to get that vibe. So I think like the relationships between the Turtles override any character deficiencies they may have.
Yo, that shit, when I was a kid, straight up made me cry. Come on. You damn puppets. And even like Splinter. When a Splinter goes missing and they start crying and shit, I'm like, this is out of control. Damn you for making me feel like...
You're making liquid sadness drip from my eyes. I don't like this.
Right.
We were also mentioning about the Foot Clan earlier. I was like, no fucking way. And then I looked at the cast. I was like, that's a fucking young Sam Rockwell.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. You want mentors or regulars? Like, Skeet Ulrich is in this. Scott Wolf is in this. There's
Right.
a lot of, like, young kids. Well, Skeet, yeah, no. Well,
I think I recognize Skeet Ulrich.
you saw John.
This movie kind of did a bad job of trying to dissuade me from the Foot Clan as a kid, because that whole little bunker room they have where it's like arcade games and the skate park and all those shit.
And skate parks and food and anything.
Cigarettes.
Yeah, as a kid, I'm instantly just like, I want to go to there.
That's what I'm saying. And a ninja?
Yeah.
I get free Marlboros? What?
But I will say this. The stuff with Danny really kind of bogs down the movie. Like, does anyone actually care about Danny in this movie? Is he just, you know, the kid from Dick Tracy where you're like, oh, God.
Oh, God, that is the kid from Dick Tracy.
No,
isn't
no, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's
He looked either like that kid older or like the stunt double for Danny Cooksey.
right. Yeah, I could see that. You know, but I get why they would throw the kid in because it's got to be relatable for kids. But yeah, the thing is, kids can relate to, you know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what kids want to see. They don't want to see some fucking 14-year-old having an existential crisis on screen. Who gives a shit? Grow up. Get a job bussing tables.
Yeah, especially all the scenes where it's him and his weirdly just completely non-committal father. I don't know what to tell you. April, you're fine. Like,
April, you're fine. Danny, I think he stole $70 out of your purse. Oh, he's just a kid. What? What is going on here? Just all that felt a little too much for me. But I will say, for me, the MVP is Elias Koteas as Casey Jones. He is absolutely badass in this movie. He's perfect as like the blue collar tough guy schlub.
Right, where he looks like he could either be a roadie or a badass vigilante of the night.
I love that you said roadie, because there is no way he's in the band.
Right, exactly. He looks like he would just be carrying around the speakers, just like, awesome, guys.
Like weird seeing him with hair. Right. It's like when I see Elias Koteas, it's like one day it's like, oh hey, De Niro, oh no, and then one day it's like, oh, Christopher Malone,
Right.
Which one are you?
No, he's really good in this. The mask looks really cool. His hockey mask, even though he barely wears it. And I love that he goes toe to toe with all these ninjas just by like sheer masculinity. That's really all he's got.
I just love how he beats a trained grandmaster who's like kicking his ass. He keeps getting back up. He's like, wait, I know what's his weakness. A golf club. 2 swings. It's like, this is the whitest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life when it comes to like white protagonist versus martial artist. Trained martial artist.
If got like brunch before. Like that would have been pretty white.
Hey guys, let's get some mimosas.
You guys want some mimosas and some lox and bagels? Yeah. But no, I agree. But then again, I mean, Tatsu was so silly, anyways. Like,
he was. His offense consisted of very slow, hard pushing and backhanded bitch slaps.
He just pointed a fist at one.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Oh, that ain't gonna do shit. When I was a kid, when Shredder falls into the garbage truck and they hit the fucking lever, I thought that was blood on the fucking pistons. When it showed when I was a kid, I was like, oh, they killed him! Like, he's dead. Now I get it, but man, I thought that was so brutally violent when I was a child.
My biggest issue, honestly, with the movie, though, is they do such a great job of building up Shredder. I think it's sort of like a Darth Vader-esque villain for this movie. And the way he goes out, I think, makes sense given the fact that it's like Splinter's like, oh, you will go out without honor. But also, he just trips him, and Shredder never gets to fight.
No, you got it wrong. He uses nunchucks that, instead of a chain, have a thin piece of rope on the edge of a very, very sharp spear and flips him with it. I don't. Not only, I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to argue logistics in a movie with a half rat puppet fighting a ninja.
Well, if nothing else, I think that would probably work better if you had maybe at least a scene of like the Ninja Turtles trying to fight Shredder and failing.
Well, they did for like one attack each turtle. One turtle attack, he'd kick him, and then the next one goes kick him. Next one goes kick. Next one goes kick, and then that's it. Didn't you kind of want to see the 4 turtles bond together and like take his ass down?
Right, that's what you would want. That's what would be like
Right.
somewhat satisfying. Even as a child, I thought that was kind of lame. It was almost my least favorite part of the whole movie. It's just that particular fucking build-up. Because I think they do such a great job of making Shredder genuinely menacing, especially when he's like giving that speech in front of all the kids where it's just like, you will be my army, and tonight we will take down these freaks.
Yeah, dude. And the helmet looks cool.
Yep.
He's got the the blades and on his cuffs. Like, he looks sweet. They did a good job. I mean, I don't know. His outfit was a little glittery, but whatever. It's the 90s. But yeah, they do nothing with him. Like, he just gives a couple, like, obviously not the actor's voice speeches. And then that's pretty much it. Then Shredder throws him off a roof. Like, that's it. That's what Shredder gets. He gets chucked off a roof. Okay, well, that's fine. And then he becomes Kevin Nash.
And yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Go ninja, go.
Oh, God.
Way more disappointing, though, in the second one, where it's like, oh man, Super Shredder, he's giant, and he gets, like, fucking crushed by a boardwalk? What the fuck? As a kid, that was supremely lame. Vanilla Ice, I was fine with. That was bullshit.
I think it was more so about the Turtles coming of age more so than it was about we have to defeat the Shredder.
Well, that was just it was redemption for Splinter.
Mm-hmm. Well, that too. It was forgot all about that actually.
But what works is, like, I agree, they make the Turtles feel authentic, and there's a lot more time just like them hanging out with everybody, including with Judith Hoag, which you haven't mentioned, as April O'Neil, who I think they replaced her in the later movies, and I think with much lesser results, because it just kind of made April more of like spunky teenager as opposed to, I believe that Judith Hoag is like a desperate reporter.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. She's not particularly super attractive, at least in my opinion. I don't know. She came off like a serious character, not eye candy. Let's put it that way.
I thought she was fantastic, honestly.
I too.
Them legs, bro. Not to sound like complete like a pig, but I thought she was fantastic. I think, honestly, I think I felt I like this April O'Neil more than I've liked. I don't remember the other ones necessarily besides Megan Fox, and hey.
Exactly what I was saying. I mean, she was just eye candy to be eye candy.
Well, right, Megan Fox is more like alien, otherworldly attractive, whereas I think Judith Hoag has like a much more sort of like relatable, down-to-earth personality that I can get invested in. I just had the weird thing of watching her where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the mom from the fucking Halloween Town movies. I completely had forgotten about that.
Yeah, same. I forgot all about that shit.
Realize that.
Yeah, she works really well with the turtles, and I like especially the whole thing where they're in that like safe house and they're just kind of chilling out. And there's literally a point where Elias Koteas and Donatello, the most you get of him actually doing machines is like him and Donatello are trying to fix the car, and they manage to get it actually working. I realized this is like the Muppet movie. They're just like hanging out and doing bullshit. And that's honestly, I wish the movie was just more of that, almost like a Richard Linklater version of this movie, of just the turtles hanging out with everybody more. I think that works really well. Maybe not as much with some of the pop culture references that are supremely of the time, especially like the moment you talked about with like Leonardo and Raph. It's like, oh, it's this big moment between these two brothers coming back together, and it's like, oh, it's a Kodak moment.
Mm-hmm. The blossoming relationship between April and Casey was believable. Those two looked like they would be into each other. They're such polar opposites, but I guess I'm talking on a base level. Those two look good together. Let's put it that way.
They look like they would like really be into each other, have a one-night stand, and then awkwardly never talk to each other again.
100%. 100%.
What do you think this one has that maybe some of the other movies that would follow didn't quite achieve? What do you think is the missing ingredient that made this one work more than any of the sequels or the other versions of the Turtles, in cinematic form at least?
Less slapstick bullshit. Less of the, it's pizza time, dudes! Because that's all the sequels became. It's kind of dark, this one. There's some really like interesting themes that they try to maybe explore in it. They obviously don't go too far because they know where their audience is, but it's more grounded. There's not other giant creatures, or they're not traveling through time, or none of that bullshit. I don't know, man. This one feels fresh, where they all felt like cash grabs to me after this one.
As far as this whole original trilogy goes, what I remember as a kid is I remember enjoying all three films. The first one's clearly like, if there was a thing to say about the films being dark at all, the first one had the darkest edge to it, I guess, as I would say. The second one, I would say, is more entertaining, honestly, but they kind of just focus on like the sillier aspects of it, and that's what kind of makes that one work. And then like it just progressively went down in quality, obviously. But I don't think as much as I love this first film, it's not like it was the strongest adaptation of a source material in the first place. The first one, you're just willing to forgive its flaws more than the other two. Because you're still having fun. You like the characters, you like the interactions, you like the sort of even when you watch it now, you love the dated charm of it. So you're willing to forgive that, as opposed to the other two where give or take what you like out of them.
You kind of hinted at, you would argue that the Bay Turtles actually did a pretty good job of that as well, in your opinion.
I think the Bay Turtles did an amazing job at making these just overall a fun experience. I would say, especially with the characters having a little more focus as far as how they were in the comic. I would say that the 14th and the unfortunate unsuccessful sequel still did a good job of that too.
I'd argue that the sequel to the Michael Bay one definitely fell more in tone with the animated series. I think the first one was kind of all over the place, where they were kind of trying to maybe ape this one, but also stick to the animated series. So the tone never felt right to me in the first one.
I kind of agree with Torrey that I think the Michael Bay Turtles are the best of the sort of post this movie attempts at doing the Turtles cinematically. I think the biggest trouble is the non-Turtles characters are very hit or miss, to be kind, with just how like annoying or grating they can be. I think the human characters are the worst parts of those movies.
Sure. Minus Gary Anthony Williams and Seamus in the second one, who were fucking perfect together as what are the two?
Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yeah, they were fucking great together in that film. I hate Seamus as a wrestler. I think he's one of the most bland performers to have ever performed character-wise, but anything I hated about him, he made me love that about him in the second Ninja Turtles movie.
And also, honestly, I like Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman. I would have wanted to see him become a fly monster.
Yeah, that was actually fun. He was actually like, I was like, this is me enjoying Tyler Perry at a film.
Did you guys not like or even see the CGI one?
I just recently did, actually.
What did you think, honestly?
I saw it a couple days ago, and it's mostly escaping me. Honestly,
I agree, but there are some fun parts to it. I thought the action in it was handled very well, but other than that, yeah, it's kind of an infinitely forgettable movie.
Oh, and the animation ages terribly.
It really fucking does. It really does. But the voice acting in it is actually pretty stellar.
They get the turtles right. And I wouldn't have minded seeing more sort of animated CG like versions of these characters, maybe with a better budget. But
I think that might be the way to go with this to continue forward.
Well, because, I mean, they've done that where, like, there's the recent CG one I've seen a couple episodes of, and it wasn't the most recent one, it was the one before that. And I thought, like, they did a really good job of, like, sort of getting those characters right and also building a mythology with, like, the existing characters and all this stuff. That is sort of a way, if you want to keep going, just go full animated. I think it'll be fun. Get somebody, like, get, like, a Spider-Verse style thing
100%.
With the Turtles. That'd be dope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say about that 2007 animated film. 10 years ago, I would have told you it was the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adaptation that was ever made, like for the big screen.
No,
I would have told you 10 years ago. Now I think it's still like it still ranks high, but I put it behind the Bay films just because, again, unfortunately, the animation hasn't aged well. But in a way, I felt like it was. Even though I know it wasn't the same cast or anything, I kind of felt like that kind of went to a CGI version of like the 03 series again, where it was again balancing its darkness with its, reach to kids, which would be the core audience to see this film in the first place.
Well, and also they're kind of trying to make it a quasi-fourth movie in the live-action franchise. They kind of reference like a lot of the events from the first three movies. But anyway, we're getting super off topic, so we have a whole other movie to talk about, guys.
I know, great.
Yeah, we're getting lobbed in Turtle Mania here. We're getting stuck in Turtle Mania here.
That's true. So let's do quick final thoughts then on the original 1990 Ninja Turtles. Torrey, our guest, first.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what else really to add to it. It was, it was a fun little throwback of a film. Acting. I'm not going to say anything was Academy Award caliber here, obviously, but what I will say is that, I wasn't bored. I had fun. The relationship between the turtles is something that you can feel. It doesn't feel fake whatsoever. You get just straight up Saturday morning cartoon vibes from every aspect of this film, whether it's the choreography, the music, just the overall package. I can't say I'm dissatisfied as a grown ass man compared to when I was like 5 or 6 watching this. So thumbs up, all that.
Adam.
I'm pretty much mimic everything Torrey just said and just say that I also think as far as the formula for a good first origin story of your franchise, I think this is a really good example to follow. I think it's done very well. The origin is told very quickly, but you get it. And then the movie just keeps going. It doesn't really stop on any. I think it's still a fun movie, and as far as I said earlier, as far as if you want to see actors in animatronic turtle suits kung fuing, then you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I also like it still quite a bit. It was one that was a favorite of mine as a kid, and now it's lessened, obviously, but I think it's still, like, of the sort of versions of the Ninja Turtles I've seen, it's my personal, I think, the best adaptation they still have done. I think it gets the characters right, and also has a bit more sort of gravity to the situation as much as you can for a kid's movie. Like, they go around New York, they say, damn, guys. 6-year-old me was like, oh man, this shit's real. They said, damn. Fuck me, they said, damn.
Raphael is hardcore.
To add to what you said, real quick, because Raphael said damn in this movie, I thought it was okay to say damn.
Yep, same thing.
Like the first
For
time,
sure.
first time Bart said "damn" on Simpsons or any of that, I'm like, oh, I could say that too. Like it just. Anyways, go ahead.
It's a great influence for children, as we can clearly see here. But yeah, they do a good job of like keeping the stakes, genuinely high for kids watching it. And like the puppetry really works. Especially, I had so much more appreciation learning upon this watch that it was an independent production. It only cost $14 million. For that, it is extremely impressive, and especially that. Interestingly, it was the highest grossing independent film of all time at the time it came out, and wasn't beaten until Pulp Fiction came out just a few years later. And yeah, I gained a lot more respect for it knowing that, and seeing that it is a solid production for such a stupid idea. And I think that's what makes the Turtles last, is it's simple, stupid, but perfectly clear that like any kid can gravitate toward, of any generation really. It's like, they're turtles, they're teenagers, they're mutants, and they're ninjas.
And their family.
But speaking of someone who you might want to be emancipated from their family, let's talk about 1997's Spawn.
From flesh to steel, from blood to blade, from man to spawn.
You're playing that game.
To now play dirty.
Now stay sharp. The night is young.
This summer, evil has a new enemy. Justice has a new weapon. And the world has a new hero. Spawn.
So, Spawn came out August 1st, 1997, is an adaptation of the Todd McFarlane Image Comics character, who was very popular in the 90s as sort of like Urtext example of like hashtag edgy, dark, twisted TM comics. It was sort of the brand that made Todd McFarlane as popular as he is now with his McFarlane toys and all this other shit.
Yeah, I'm Todd McFarlane. This is fucking Spawn. He's got chains. He's got guns. He's dog brooding, mysterious. He's black.
That was a big deal.
It really was.
It was a huge deal that Spawn was a black character, and that he was, there were other black characters in the book. Because it went to Image. Famously, all the creators, the top guys at Marvel, left and formed Image. So, like, Spawn paved the way, and then there was, like, Shadowhawk, who was a black guy. There was a lot of multiracial characters. And, unfortunately, I do think that that's kind of what they put their hat on, and then didn't really care about the story too much.
I don't quite agree, because the problem is you have someone like the D.B. Sweeney character who, in the comics, and at least which I haven't read much of the comics, but I was telling these guys off mic before we started, that I did watch at least the first season of the animated Spawn series, which came out around the same time on HBO, which I hadn't seen before. And that character is at least black there, and I believe is black in the comics, and
yes,
they purposefully went around that, and Todd McFarlane said that it was more because the studio didn't want it painted as a black movie.
No, yes. I'm talking about the comics in total. I'm not talking about this movie in particular.
Right.
I'm talking about the source material, because my brother and I had every issue from number 1 to like number 217, I think.
Damn.
Of Spawn. And we also had all the action figures. We had everything. We were huge Spawn fans, to the point to where, even though as I'm sure everyone can guess, I fucking hate this movie. I saw it 3 times opening day. I went
opening day.
Wait, one more time.
I went with 3 different groups of people opening day.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I'm going to pause for a minute and ask Thomas, why the fuck did you pick Spawn?
Well, interestingly, with Spawn, I think it's one of the bigger examples of sort of like the late 90s superhero trend. Where you would have like some of these characters who I at least heard whispers. I remember not necessarily around the time the movie came out, but not too long after it was like on cable and all this other stuff. I saw it as a kid, and I remember being at least fascinated. It's like, oh, this is kind of darker. This is weirder. It was not weirdly too long after I started watching Ninja Turtles I'm like, oh man, this is the hardcore shit though. It's Spawn. He's like from hell and all this other shit. And I also had at least one Spawn toy that was based on the movie. It's simultaneously the lamest and most interestingly weird toy they could have done, where it's a playset of like the weird sort of fake out moment at the end of this movie where the Violator demon is coming out of the fireplace, and that part's cool. But then Spawn's also, like, the action figure you get with that, and his accessories are, like, the fire poker and the little thing you use to sweep around the fireplace. I can't believe I had an action figure that had a fire poker as an accessory. That's such a dumb fucking thing to have an accessory. Right.
It doesn't make any sense why a superhero with fire poker action.
So I was aware more of Spawn as sort of a figure when I was a kid around that age, and then I watched the movie, and it just didn't really faze me that much. I was just kind of like, went in one ear out the other, and I just kind of forgot about it. And then over the years, I'd heard how many, like, top 10 worst garbage comic book movies list it was on, and I thought, like, it's been, I think, about 2 decades since I've seen this movie. I was at least curious to see it again. And, I tend to be on the show the guy that kind of likes to say, like, now, Adam, we're dogging on this movie, but what about this element, this thing? There's a bit of... Like, yeah. I tend to be more of that guy. It's like, I want to see the goodness about this. Spawn can die in a ditch. It is such a terrible piece of shit fucking movie. It's the worst. I hate it so much. But pause on that. Torrey, what about your experience with Spawn as a character and then the movie?
There used to be this place called Sound and Music, and it was kind of like a precursor to what you see now, if you still have one, a Newbury Comics, where it's CDs, but games, and then there was like the figurines, like the crazy comic, violent, super, stylistic figurines or whatever. And that's where I would see like the Spawn shit. Just one of these times we were watching like the Stars channel, just me and my brother, and we were watching the original film, and we thought it was fucking cool. And for like, because we're kids. I was like 6 when this came out. Me and my brother were like 8 or 9 when we saw it finally. So we were like, oh, this is a cool film, and we forgot about it. So I always kind of had like a positive view of it because, love Michael Jai White for, obviously, Black Dynamite, shit like that. So saw it again, probably like in high school, and I was like, this is a fucking piece of shit of epic proportions. This could have worked, honestly, if they had somebody who was competent. Things that work for it. The CGI that revolves around Spawn. Now, I'm going to say that for the fact that everything else looks like a fucking PS1 cutscene. Bad PS1
That is insulting PS1 cutscenes. This is more like FMV Sega CD bullshit. I
honestly couldn't. Yeah, I mean, either way, like
any of the hell sequences.
Jesus Christ, dude, the fucking hell sequences, man! Like everything that I saw was like, this is why people were shitting on fucking CGI in like the 90s, because we had this bullshit.
I think I'm gonna say it. Is there an earlier point? Because like between Jurassic Park and this, which several people who worked on Jurassic Park with ILM did the special effects work for this. Is there another sort of point where, like, we were really dogging on CG? Because I might say Spawn is the nexus point of everyone hating CG.
Probably. Dude, honestly, the way that the CGI looked, it felt like 2 different fucking companies working on this. It felt like one company that knew what the fuck they were doing was doing Spawn CGI, which giving, I'm not trying to shower praise on this, to this day, I think the cape, I think his fucking suit, I think the practical effects of him looking like a burn victim, I think the practical effects of him wearing the suit are really fucking, I'll even say John Leguizamo's fucking like 100 to 200 pounds of fucking makeup still look good today. Just because of the work that was put into it. But fucking everything else, yeah, like, there wasn't a big budget on this, but, like, how did you make Spawn shit look good? How did you make the cape look fucking great? How did you have all the transformation sequences look badass? But then, like, the part where you should have a lot of your good work on doesn't look like shit.
This was so disappointing, this movie, in every way. And then they give you little teases of things that are in the comics. Like Angela, she's a warrior angel, and she always goes after Spawn and all this stuff. Well, in the movie, there's a scene where they're at that banquet, and it clearly shows this woman. She's a redheaded woman in like a green and black dress, and they focus on her. She's got the earrings that look like the Spawn symbol and stuff, because that's what she has in the comics. And then they do nothing with it. Nothing.
I was watching when I watched the animated series first season.
Sure.
Like, that's the one that she's the one who like goes up to her office like, "Damn it, I always defeat the hell spawns. I'm the one who's supposed to do this, right?" That's her. Okay, she's cool. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I did not realize that was her, and that makes this movie somehow slightly worse.
Exactly. And then Sam and Twitch, they're in it for a split second, standing by an ambulance in this movie. I mean, clearly it's got to be studio involvement, because the only reason I say this is Todd McFarlane, as money hungry as he is, really cares about this character.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kind of is like, yeah, make a movie of it. Fine. And then they just kind of like, yeah, all right, well, we're going to do what the hell we want to do with it. Obviously, because then the animated series comes out, and it's very faithful.
Right, he was more heavily involved in that, as opposed to he was really pushed out of,
absolutely.
like, much of any conversations with this movie, which is just, like, it's the epitome to me of, like, late 90s bad superhero movie, in terms of just, like, no one seems to get the idea of, like, what they think comic booky is being very over the top, but in a way where you're just kind of like screaming things or saying things in a gruff voice like this. That's all Martin Sheen's doing. That's all Michael Jai White is doing, unfortunately. I feel so bad for Michael Jai White, because this is at a point where he was in like a bunch of like very direct-to-video action movies, and he thought, okay, my big break. I'm gonna be able to go out there and be something awesome, because if this had been a good movie and done well enough, I could argue he could maybe be on the level of like a Carl Weathers for our generation. And then this is such a big failure and everyone hates it. And then he goes back to doing, unfortunately, mostly direct-to-video action movies after this point. And it's such a shame, to the point where that's why when like a Black Dynamite comes over, when he pops up in like The Dark Knight, you're like, oh fuck, it's Michael Jai White. What happened, man?
I would argue he has a really good cult following, though, of people that just respect the fact that he is a shining bastion of talent, even in the fucking worst of projects that he's in, and also for the fact that he is a legitimate badass in every fucking way.
I think all that was mainly born from Black Dynamite, though.
He never really disappeared. You know, he this film could have destroyed a career, and he could have just ended up doing fucking nothing.
I'd argue that after this movie, he was not seen in anything for years. He might have done stunt work or choreography work, but I'm talking about as far as like straight up acting. What, like Undisputed 2? You know, Never Back Down 2, Blood and Bone. Like, he wasn't in really anything for years until he started hitting the direct-to-DVD sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, so this movie definitely kind of fucked him. And not only him, kind of everybody involved.
Well, I mean, John Leguizamo kept getting work regardless of what is an incredibly heinous performance. I hate everything about the fucking clown character.
Nothing
even
fucking
with, like,
pops.
It's the worst intersection of like, hey, let's get Beetlejuice and the genie from Aladdin and have them make a horrible mutant child. That's what this thing is.
Yeah, basically.
He's trying energy-wise. Like, at least I can tell acting-wise he's giving a shit, but they gave him not a single fucking line that was even chuckle-worthy. Every single thing, he's like even to a point where he even acknowledges that this sucks, where he's like, I'm a shit clown, deal with it. Like, or something, he says something to that effect. And it's just like, wow, it's like even I feel like that was like made up on the fly because of how fucking stupid his dialogue was, or even his character was in the first place. Isn't he more of a threat in the comics?
Clown, he's kind of like a serial killer.
Yeah,
like that's how they build him as. Yeah, basically. Although there is another character in the comics who is a serial killer. Thomas, I'm sure you remember the Ice Cream Man from the animated series.
Yes, trivia, voiced by Ronnie Cox, which was really creepy and unsettling.
Yeah, so unsettling. But he's always kind of a threat in the comics because he can turn into Violator at a second's notice.
They fucked up with this too. Violator looks like shit. Ugh.
Violator in the comics, he's got his brothers. I think they're like the Pelagian brothers or something like that. I think there's 5 of them, and all their names start with a V. And they're fucking crazy. Like, the comics centered on them are some of the most entertaining, violent shit you could ever read. Because they're all morons.
It's like Casper's weird step cousins or whatever,
his uncles or whatever.
But his uncles, yeah, but they're just violators. Like especially watching the animated series, what I like about him in that is that, one, he makes a couple jokes, but they're very sinister, and he still feels like there is a sort of a dark edge, especially when he's the Violator. There's a point where there's a similar scene in this movie where he fights with Spawn, and in here it's a really lame action sequence, but in the animated series, he initially tries to fight the Violator, but the Violator instantly just, like, pushes him away and all over the place. It's like, there's no point in fighting me. There's no way you're going to be able to defeat me. So once you get your shit together, get with the fucking program and do what you're supposed to fucking do. That's way more interesting than just like, oh, hey, I'm a fat little clown, then I turn into a big monster.
I am the one who should be leading the army. Oh my god.
I'm gonna eat wax worms on this pizza, which John Leguizamo did, because he's so disgusting, and that's such a funny character trait. It feels so much like it's trying too hard. And because they pop in so much dialogue where they have to ADR so many times where just John Leguizamo's walking away, just like, hey, I'm making another fart joke. Well, you don't need that. Just let him walk away, for the love of God. Let him get off the screen. I feel the same way about him I felt about, like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, the baby men from Nothing But Trouble. It's just, I hate looking at him.
Yeah.
I wanted to vomit again at him. I keep wanting to vomit.
I want to vomit at Martin Sheen's fucking dye job.
The moment that broke me completely while watching this movie again is the point where Clown is talking to Martin Sheen and says, oh man, we gotta kickstart the apocalypse now. Immediate cut to his face. I was so angry.
Oh my God, Thomas.
I was so incredibly angry.
Oh my god.
Call that.
Yeah,
I didn't call that either. Dude, you know what line broke me in the movie? Like, there's like literally a scene where after the shootout in the fucking dining room happens, D.B. Sweeney's talking on the phone, and I don't know if I made this out right, but it sounded fucking hilarious. He's like, what's going on? There was a code breach, sir, at the army. And then it's just the way it fucking sounded. Like, it was the most vague fucking, like, description ever. Like,
he sounds like Buster Bluth, which is like, I got these from Army, mother. That's what they think the Army is.
I got these tomatoes from grocery store. Like, shit like that.
But Adam, what line broke you? Well, let's talk about what broke everybody. What broke you, Adam?
I think it's kind of the whole thing. I'm gonna put my cigarillos out in a scorpion pit. Like, what? Okay. And then the priest character, how fucking stupid.
Dude, she got the smug, evil bitch look down, though. I can't hate on that.
She tries to kick him in the nuts and in his belt buckle. Like, what the fuck is this about? Plus, Nicole Williamson is Cagliostro, which, by the way, is not the same character. He's a blend between two characters in the movie from the comics. There is Cagliostro, but there's also the Redeemer, who has the hand blade and all that shit. But Spaz.
Well, the dog, like, this horrible mutant
Miko
zombie.
Hughes.
Right, which that was disappointing because he's a version of, like, a much more interesting character. Probably my favorite thing about that first season of the animated show is Spawn lives in this collective of homeless people. And Miko Hughes is a kidified version of sort of this, like, middle-aged guy who's been homeless, but is the one guy defending Spawn amongst, like, the gaggle of homeless people. We're like, we should just fucking get rid of this guy. He's a menace to our little community. And he's like, guys, come on, he just seems lost and weird. And he's like, he obviously has something wrong with him, but I don't think we should kick him out because of that. That's such an interesting character to me, and I love the dynamic between him and Spawn in that show. And then here he's just like, I'm a kid. I'm a scrappy homeless boy. What the fuck?
With like the most short fuse abusive dad I've ever seen on fucking screen. You threw up because your bodily system couldn't handle fucking rotten food? I'm gonna beat you. Like,
did you see Todd McFarlane's cameo?
God, no.
Todd McFarlane's the guy who hand spawned the machine gun in the alley. And I read some fucking bullshit interview with him. The guy is always on fucking 11. Yeah, no, I want to be like, I gave Spawn the violence. What the fuck? I will say one thing. This soundtrack was fucking lit when it came out. I mean, dude, it was crazy. Oh, the best techno artists mixed with the best, like, fucking rock artists. Like Butthole Surfers and whoever the fuck.
You got Crystal Method, Marilyn Manson, Korn, and the Dust Brothers collaborating.
The soundtrack actually went gold because of the amount of decent music for it. I mean, look at this, like Ronnie Size, DJ Greyboy, The Prodigy, Moby, like a lot of fucking well-known electronic producers. You know, I would actually argue that the soundtrack was probably more fucking successful than the movie. R.I.P. to Prodigy.
The fucking, just the crux of this thing. So, okay, Jason Wynn, Martin Sheen, knows that he's dealing with technically the devil and Satan and whatever. So the devil, or a lieutenant of the devil, if you want to call it that, clown or whatever the fuck he is, goes up to him, "We're going to rig a fancy device and hook it up to your heart. No one would dare kill you because it'll set off a bomb that will kill everyone." That sounds good. I like that. You don't smell a double cross like immediately. You're like, all right, cool.
Well, especially this little fucking clown character comes in, and he's just like, "Hey, come on, I want to collaborate. I want to make sure this works. I want to help you out." You would immediately be suspect, obviously, at this point.
Police or agents on the scene see this guy coming in, and they're like, "Wait, who the fuck is this thing?"
"Oh, it's my friend Clown." Is
Right.
his name.
Why is the CEO talking to a human blueberry? Like,
The one moment I loved so much of this movie, right before the climax happens, when Clown is doing some stupid bullshit. I think he's like, it's when he makes his head become a balloon on his hand or some bullshit. And then we cut to Martin Sheen, and he gives the face that summarizes my reaction to the movie completely. His eyes roll like, ugh.
I believe that was a real face. And they just caught him doing that, where he's like, "Fuck am I doing?"
They're just having the camera roll for coverage, and he's just doing that genuinely. It's like, yeah.
Maybe. He wears a fucking tinfoil suit at one point in this movie.
He does do that, yeah.
What the Oh, and her gun shoots gel out of it? Like, this is the fucking dumbest movie.
you want to get a scene that details how really fucking stupid this film is? The shootout at the dinner or at the fucking ballroom or whatever. The fact that for some reason, as Spawn is jumping, as he's firing the weapons, as he's flipping in slow motion, bullets hitting nothing.
You know how many people you would have potentially killed right then?
Like, you could have killed yourself. Like, I wouldn't have shot my knees at all if I was doing this in real life.
No, dude. I'd argue that when he forms his cape into a sweet fucking hell crotch rocket, and yet it's still susceptible to slippery roads. Like, what the fuck?
Oh my god.
Oh god. I'm so mad at you, Thomas.
No, I mean, I get it. I'm very angry at myself. I think this is the first one in a while where I've genuinely just loathed every second watching it.
I think Santa's Play was the last one.
Yeah, they needed a bad product placement scene. This film just really needed, I really wish they could have had something like, "Oh, I wish I had these brand tires or some shit, and I wouldn't have slipped on my crappy motorcycle monster thing."
Cagliostro telling him, "You need to recharge your power. Have a Coke."
It's weird that of the two movies, the one that has that, we didn't mention this, but Ninja Turtles,
the Gatorade,
Domino's. No, Domino's.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah, because you're in the middle of New York City, so of course you get Domino's pizza. That's the best pizza around.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, we're talking about a good movie. Let me get back to the shitty movie.
Let's go back to the shitty movie.
This is, I will say, this came out in 1997. I would watch Batman and Robin twice in a row before I would ever watch this movie again.
Oh.
I don't know, man.
Batman and Robin...
Strong statement.
It's a strong take, but the thing is, what Batman and Robin has is that it has a more consistent style. It has the silly, over-the-top operatic nature that at least, some of these people are having fun. It's a garbage, but at least I can sense that, some people here are having a fun time. Versus with Spawn, it is trying so hard to be overly edgy, and it feels so chopped to shit. We didn't talk about how many times they do that fucking cigarette burn transition, and how annoying it is every time it happens.
Oh, God, it's very constant.
It is trying so hard, objectively, to be unpleasant. I don't think Batman and Robin's trying to do that. This movie is aggressively trying to, be unpleasant, because it's no, that's what's edgy, that's what's 1997. And no, that's not entertaining. That's not enjoyable on any level. I was groaning the way Adam tends to do when we do bad movies throughout this whole movie. I was so aggressively annoyed. I forgot just how fucking awful this is. And especially, Tori was kind of praising some of the CG here. I don't think any of it works. I think
I agree. I think none of it works.
I don't know, man. For some reason, like I said, I still think it felt like two different companies. I felt like the suit was well done.
This is more Stockholm Syndrome, I think, Tori. You've been captive by this movie, and you tried to find something. I appreciate the instinct, but the thing is, you're actually right about the fact that the movie went over budget, and it was most of it was done by ILM, the visual effects stuff, but in order to save time on the movie, they did farm out the hell sequences to a completely different company. And what's interesting is the different company in question is John Grower's Santa Barbara Studios, who around the same time also did the lovely visual effects for everyone's favorite horror sequel, An American Werewolf in Paris.
Oh, for fuck's sake, can you tell?
Yep.
Oh my god.
Dude, the CGI was shit in American Werewolf in Paris.
And it is here too, Torrey.
I literally gave this film like a 3 out of 10 just because the Spawn suit looked
god
cool.
damn it. You
honestly.
really a positive person.
Well, you know what, Torrey? Why don't you go into your final thoughts then? The most positive here with your 3 out of 10. Go. Finalize your thoughts.
The film is a fucking piece of shit. You don't like any of the characters. You don't like any motivation. You don't know what the fucking plot is. The supervillains are even stupid, comparable to that of like a Saturday morning cartoon. And like, not even like a good Saturday morning cartoon, like one that's complete shit, like, I don't know, something that lasted like a season, like Cyber 6 or something like that. Something that was on Fox for like 6 months and you completely forgot about it. This was a failure in every which way, and the one compliment I'm giving is just because, like, you know, I could see one thing, and that one thing was it, and after that, nothing else fucking matters. You know? Dude, even the credits give you a fucking anxiety attack. With the stupid ass like fire moving shit in the background, with like this credits with the font that tries to make it look like Seven, but you know you're not watching Seven, you're watching fucking Spawn. Yeah, you know you're watching one of the top 5 worst comic book adaptations of all time. It's blown opportunity, almost ruined Michael Jai White's career. The fact that Nico Williamson decided, I'm gonna go out like this. Like for fuck's sake, the guy who directed this film made like Garfield Gets Real. Like we're not talking about somebody who was even talented behind the fucking camera. Honestly, this is so bad that even though a lot of people are very skeptical on how Todd McFarlane's gonna fucking make his film, it can't be worse than this. Honestly, if it ever gets made.
We should mention the fact that Todd McFarlane is attempting through Blumhouse to write and direct a new adaptation of Spawn, which he's been threatening to do for years.
A horror-centric version.
Right, a much more horror-centric version, which I could see that working. Well, I know it's Jamie Foxx and then
Jeremy Renner is Twitch. They're shooting for a noir sort of hardcore detective story where Spawn is almost like a ghost in it. So it's not going to be very Spawn-centric at all.
It's going to be a fucking background character.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Which could work. Honestly, it could work. I have zero faith, though, in Todd McFarlane as a director.
Who would you think would be a more interesting director for that?
For something like that, Ben Affleck, I think would work, like watching The Town.
I think he wants to stay away from superheroes, though, for the time being.
Well, I guess.
The rest of his fucking life. Watching this film, and even though this week the hot button topic is shitting on Zack Snyder for his incredibly shitty ideas of what he wanted to do with the DCU, more than what he's already done with the DCU, I would have rather had him direct with his
Zack
stupid
Snyder's aesthetic would work for a Spawn movie.
Exactly, because Spawn itself, am I going out of reach by saying that Spawn as a comic book is probably just shallow, edgy bullshit?
Yes,
at the end of the day. Okay, it's about
looking
cool.
It was like 11 or 12, and I thought it was the coolest shit ever.
Yeah. So you need somebody who is equally as shallow but also cares. Because the thing what I say about Zack Snyder is that he's Michael Bay with a heart of gold. He still gives a fuck. He's just terrible at establishing how much he gives a fuck. Right. He could have done something with this.
Well, you know what, Torrey? You're living in a fucking dream world. But anyway, Adam, go ahead and go with your final thoughts.
This movie's atrocious. It's a piece of shit. It broke my heart. Malabolgia, for some reason, has the same voice as Dr. Claw.
Yeah, it's Frank Welker literally doing his Dr. Claw voice.
Yeah, it's literally just Dr. Claw. This is not the worst one we've done for the podcast, in my opinion. Definitely in the top 5.
Yeah, with a bullet, it's so much. I mean, it's not the worst, I agree. But anyway, this is complete trash. I think it's definitely one of the worst, I think, of these big screen, big budget comic book adaptations. Because it just gets everything wrong, and it goes way more for the most shallow possible aesthetic for something. I agree, that isn't that, developed in the first place. Like, when I say I like that, the first season of that Spawn animated show, I think it's interesting as an artifact. I think it's got pretty good animation, and especially the voice acting alone. Keith fucking David as Spawn adds so much more depth to such a thin character.
Wanda!
Every time he says Wanda, it's so great. That's not sacred, necessarily. But with This, it just gets all of the wrong impulses and does everything wrong and just shoves it at the screen. None of it sticks, but it doesn't care. The movie doesn't care that none of it sticks and just keeps assaulting you with it. That's what I just feel like. It is just barraging you with whatever trick bullshit they could throw, and none of it works. None of it is good. I fucking hate this movie. And, Todd McFarlane, whatever he might do, I don't necessarily think it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be nearly as bad as this, though.
I mean, there's potential.
Only up from here. You're working with the bottom barrel of expectations.
See, but it's also Blumhouse, so...
I mean, they're hit or miss, but when they hit very well.
But when they miss really bad. So, we'll see.
We'll see. But that's the end of our discussion on Spawn and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and our 2 non-DC, non-Marvel comic book adaptations. We got some feedback to read before we get to our final picking at the end here. I'm just going to go through. We asked all of you via the Double H Double Bill Facebook and Twitter feed, which is at DEDBpod, about your favorite and not so favorites, as it were, non-DC and Marvel comic book adaptations. And we got some first friends of the show who include Shaquille Lambert, who says, good, 30 Days of Night, Old Boy, the Korean version, Sin City, and Adventures of Tintin, the bad, Ghost in the Shell, the ScarJo one, Dragon Ball Evolution, Attack on Titan, and most recently, Polar. Dan Chambo says, my favorite is Judge Dredd, the Carl Urban version. Jonathan Habner-Mikhail says, the Peanuts movie and Alita Battle Angel are my favorite films adapted from more unconventional types of comics. The best examples of good comic book movies with terrible sequels are Men in Black / Men in Black 2 and Kingsman The Secret Service / Kingsman The Golden Circle. Kara Holden says, some great ones, The Mask, Scott Pilgrim, Dredd, TMNT 1 and 2, Hellboy, Men in Black. Terrible ones, TMNT 3, Spawn, Judge Dredd, R.I.P.D., and Sin City. Tyler Thompson says, Spawn is still a favorite of mine. It's definitely a product of its time, so it isn't what it could be. That's why I'm hyped to see a modern version with better CGI and all-around better everything. Brian Kane says, Dredd was the greatest action film of the new millennium until Fury Road came along. Battle Royale is a terrific Verhoeven-style movie that lampoons Japan's ludicrous expectations for its youth. Barbed Wire is all the worst things from 90s comic book movies rolled into one. And Spawn is by no means a great movie, but it has some brilliant points. Case in point, the demonic version of The Violator. James Rodriguez says, with the kinetic Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Edgar Wright achieved something I never thought would be possible, turning Michael Cera into a credible action hero. I also find some nostalgia for The Crow, less so for The Crow Wicked Prayer. Unfortunately, Chris Evans can't save a production as bland and as amateurish as The Losers. Matt Kozlowski says, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is bad, Mystery Men is good, The Phantom is dumb fun. And then The Great Tragic Clown at Thankful React 69 says, good Ghost World American Splendor.
That's nicer on, fucking Spawn than I ever fucking was.
That's true.
Than I ever could be. I'm going to start right off the bat with Shaq. I do like 30 Days a Night. I think it's flawed. It's cool. It's not great. But Old Boy, I can't get behind Old Boy. Either version.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, it's not the movie itself. I think it's filmed beautifully, acted beautifully. I just find it, the main thing, just so disgusting. It just bums me out, man. I just can't. It's a personal thing. It's nothing to do with the movie itself. Mm-hmm. Well, it is itself, but I find it.
I would argue that it accomplished its job because of how.
No, it definitely did. It fucked me up.
Yeah,
and I think it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. Sin City, I think, is probably the most faithful comic to screen adaptation. And dude, I fucking love Tintin.
Tintin is super underrated. I completely agree.
I would argue the most underrated of the 2010s. Just how amazingly fun and an experience it is.
The animation still holds up.
It's the best example of how to use motion capture and CG, I think, in modern times. It's part of the reason I'm not so mad at Crystal Skull, because I would argue that's the best Indiana Jones movie we've seen in a while, is Tintin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell is ultimately forgettable. I want to go and put in the bad. It exists. It doesn't offend me. Dragon Ball, on the other hand, offends me. I think it's terrible. I didn't bother with Attack on Titan, and I haven't seen Polar yet.
Ghost in the Shell, I would argue it's mostly forgettable, and then it does a turn that I think is genuinely abrasively offensive, considering that they have Scarlett Johansson playing this character, who, in her past, was a Japanese woman, died, and then chose to become Scarlett Johansson. That's...
Oh, you know what? I never even thought of that. That is kind of...
Yep, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I never fucking want to see this Ghost in a Shell movie. Like, I don't even want to waste my fucking time. And I rarely say that about movies. Normally, I'm a little more forgiving, like, oh, I can't have an opinion until I see it. But with this, I'm like, there's not one fucking person who has had anything positive to say about it. So I was like, you know what? Nah.
In terms of good CGI, I will definitely agree with Jonathan with the recent Alita Battle Angel. I really dug Alita. I'm not familiar with that manga, but I really dug that. Especially, I saw it in the Dolby 3D, which it's like a 2-hour theme park ride. That was so awesome.
I fucking really dug Alita. I thought the character design and the world design was fucking exceptional. I really, really enjoyed the movie to the point to where I'm not a big manga fan or anime fan, but it made me want to read the source material. I enjoyed it that much. I enjoyed it more than I did Captain Marvel.
I mean, I'd say so to a certain degree, too. But I also would say Aaliyah's slightly hobbled by any of the stuff with Mahershala Ali or Jennifer Connelly is kind of shitty. And then especially how they try and tease the sequel is really dumb with their surprise cameo. I'm not going to spoil it, but that stuff is really dumb.
But I'll tell you what, though. That totally worked, because they show his fucking face quite a bit in the movie, and you hear his voice, and I never once thought it was him.
Well, he pops on screen, and I'm like, is that, like, Doc Brown's illegitimate son that he disowned? Like, that's what he fucking looks like. I won't spoil who it is, but you're like, oh, really? But, you know, one that people don't usually acknowledge is, like, a comic book movie that I'm glad is mentioned among some of these people is Men in Black.
Completely unlike the source material, though.
Yeah, like The Mask.
It's basically that. Where, they still look the same, they still,
The very basic premise is the same, but everything else is like...
Right, but everything else is completely different.
Not as dark, yeah.
And we've talked about this before, Thomas, and I actually agree with you. Men in Black, one of the best blockbuster movies of the last 20 years. And easily one of Will Smith's best.
I would argue the best, and perhaps the only really good one.
2's a piece of shit, but I would argue for 3. I had fun seeing 3 in theaters.
But was 3 good because of Will Smith, or was the story was 3 good because of Josh Brolin as young Tommy Lee Jones?
I would say everything worked, from Jermaine Clement as a villain to Will Smith to Josh Brolin. That was fucking great too. So I also packed an emotional punch at the end. I give it that, because 2 didn't have that. I would say even 1 didn't really have that emotional punch.
I have so many issues with that ending of Men in Black 3. They totally like C-3PO Anakin Skywalker the whole franchise in a really stupid way. I really don't like... I mean, I would say it's better than 2. It's just, I think it's a really uneven movie. The part of that movie I really dig that no one even talks about, it was probably the first time I'd ever seen this very great actor and recognized who he was. Michael Stuhlbarg is the alien who can, like, kind of reach into memories.
Oh, he was so good.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I agree.
That part of the movie is genuinely... That makes it worth seeing the movie, honestly. He's so good in that part.
The first Kingsman's great. Well, maybe not great, but the first Kingsman's fun. Mm-hmm. The sequel, I mean, I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it is what it is. I mean, I watched it, and I was entertained enough.
Glad to see some, like, Peanuts movie I thought was actually pretty cute. I was so surprised that actually managed to work.
Yeah.
And Scott Pilgrim, obviously, I think that one is still pretty interesting.
I like Ghost World, American Splendor, and we've already kind of addressed Dredd. It was my other good pick. I think Dredd's one of the best action movies to come out in the last, 10 years? I mean, it's basically The Raid with the superhero, but it's still good.
But we want to thank everybody for the feedback. We appreciate all of that. And we also want to thank Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music that we use in our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarda for our art. She accepts commissions at fiverr.com/EEScarda. And of course, we want to thank Mr. Torrey Depina for returning as our guest here. Torrey, anything to plug?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I just plug my Twitter account. Follow me at TCVB491 at TCVB491 on Twitter, or Torrey Knows Beats. I think that's the one I have right now. But yeah, follow me if you want. But again, thanks for having me on.
We also want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at DEDBpod. That's where you can find us, and that's where we put our little feelers for our topics. Right now, you could be commenting on our little questionnaire for next week's topic, which we'll be picking the options soon enough. I would also recommend you follow me at my own individual account at NotTheWho'sTommy. That's where I'll post my general musings, and also I write reviews and post them on marianithomas.wordpress.com. And you can find Adam, I believe, somewhere in the distance, in the trash heaps, trying to put his life together and screaming out, Wanda.
Or Spaz.
His favorite, his one and only Spaz. And make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or any other podcast thing you use. We're on Spotify. We're on Stitcher. We're on the YouTubes even, that the kids love doing so much. We're on pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. And please make sure to rate, review, and all of that for us, because that gets us more notice. That gets us out there. Get the word out. Please.
Please, for God's sakes. Please.
Yes, thank you, the dozens of you that listen. There are dozens of us. Dozens!
Dozens.
But before we skedaddle out of here, it's time to do our picking. Yes, it's the cliffhanger ending before we get to next week. And because a little show is coming back for its final season, Game of Thrones, we are going to return to a topic we did a little while ago. We are returning to the world of fantasy films.
Game of what now? Is that popular?
Yeah, it's about a bunch of people that play like musical chairs, but with thrones.
Like Ring Around the Rosie.
Exactly. Yes. Anyway, it's time for our picking. We're basically, at the end of every show, Adam and I have two movies that we don't know what the other has picked, but we've assigned numbers between 1 and 10 for both, and we know they're generally around the topic of fantasy films. I have the two good ones this time, and Adam has the two bad ones, because last time it was the reverse. So, of course, that's a big reason why we would want to reprise the topic, is so we can switch off on that quality and get a chance to have an opposite perspective from our own picks. And usually we would pick a number between 1 and 10 for each of us, and that would seal our fates for the next episode. But when we have a guest, Torrey is handed the gun by the bum Todd McFarlane to pick between our two films. So, Torrey, number between 1 and 10 for my two good choices.
Alright, I got the fucking gun. I'm gonna aim it. I'm gonna shoot it. No, okay. 7.
Alright. At number 8, I had one that arguably fantasy film, but as a child it almost was a horror film, and is one of the weirdest technical sequels to ever exist. I am talking about 1985's Return to Oz.
Oh, God damn it. Really? Fuck me.
Not a fan?
Only saw it once, and it fucked with me. So, I mean, that'll be interesting to revisit.
Revisiting some childhood trauma, for sure. And then at number 1, I had, just a bit earlier, 1984's The Neverending Story.
Oh, man. That's a movie.
It is indeed a motion picture, yes.
Yeah. We're excited for the Oz, that one. So,
okay. And now, Torrey, for Adam's two bad picks.
All right, I'm gonna stay lucky here. I'm gonna go with 7 again.
At number 9, I had the Bridget Nielsen Red Sonja.
This is the Conan-esque movie I haven't seen. I've seen the two Conan movies, but I have not seen this one. Okay, with Arnold in a supporting role, yes.
Yeah, well, like a cameo, basically. At number 1, I had In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege tale.
Can I renege that? Because you guys need to shit on some Uwe Ball.
Yeah, no, I don't think we do, because I put that in as like, do I really want to subject myself to this?
do we want to kick a horse carcass that at this point is a skeleton?
Right, basically. This might be our oddest double feature, Thomas.
Didn't we just have an episode that was The Prestige and Nothing But Trouble, Adam?
Yeah, it's true, but both of those are magic.
They're both magical films. But on that note, we gotta escape back into the sewers, dudes, and party down with some pizza from Domino's.
Oh, bodacious! Long live the tooch!
Tubular. We're gonna talk about fucking Spawn. It's fucking hardcore. He's got fucking guns. It's got all that. It's gonna be fucking edgy. It's all that shit. It's gonna be the best film ever made. Mike McFarlane.
Not Todd McFarlane?
Oh, sorry. I fucked up there. Todd McFarlane.
No, I'm his brother Mike. I don't do any of the drawing. I just sit around.
I'm a fucking tracer.